Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling a theory that might just turn your world upside down. Ready to explore analytic idealism?
I'm ready.
Analytic idealism is the idea that reality is, like, at its core, mental.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. It really challenges how we usually think about the world. Instead of seeing reality as like fundamentally material, it suggests that it's consciousness or mind that's primary.
To help us unpack all this, we're going to be looking at a paper called Flights in the Mindscape.
Okay.
It was written by Peter Sjöstedt-Hughes back in 2025, and it's a review of Bernardo Kastrup's book, Analytic Idealism in a Nutshell. So think of this as your crash course in a really mind-bending theory.
It is. I mean, Sjöstedt-Hughes does a great job of summarizing Kastrup's ideas and then also offering his own insights, and critiques, which I think makes for a very stimulating discussion.
Our mission today is going to be to understand the basics of analytic idealism, see how it stacks up against other views of reality, and then explore some of its implications.
Sounds good. And it's important to note that analytic idealism, it kind of falls under this broader umbrella of idealism, which is a philosophical concept that's been around for centuries.
Right, it's not a brand new idea. So before we dive into Kastrup's specific take on this, can we take a step back and talk about, like, the different flavors of idealism? What are the main categories?
Yeah, definitely. So, to put it simply, idealism basically proposes that reality is essentially mental, not material. But there are a bunch of different ways to approach this idea. One category is transcendental idealism,
Okay.
famously championed by Immanuel Kant. And this view suggests that our perception of reality is shaped by our minds, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the true nature of reality in itself.
So it's like we're seeing the world through a filter.
Exactly. Then there's absolute idealism, which was favored by philosophers like Schelling and Hegel. They went a step further, suggesting that reality, both perceived and in itself, is fundamentally mental.
Okay, so in absolute idealism, there's no separation between mind and reality. It's all like one big mind.
Yeah, that's the general idea. And then you have solipsism, which is a more radical view, proposing that only one's own mind is real and everything else is uncertain. And finally, there's Platonic idealism. This is drawing inspiration from Plato's concept of perfect forms existing in a realm beyond our senses, casting shadows that create the imperfect world we perceive.
Wow. So many ways to think about the nature of reality. To help our listeners wrap their heads around this, what would be a good analogy to illustrate the difference between perceived reality and reality in itself?
Hmm. Think of a computer simulation. Like, the world you see on the screen is real in the context of the simulation,
Right.
but it's ultimately generated by code running on a computer, a reality kind of outside the simulation itself.
That's a great analogy. It really highlights how what we perceive might not be the whole picture. So where does Kastrup's analytic idealism fit into all of this?
So Kastrup's view is this interesting blend of transcendental and absolute idealism. He posits that reality is fundamentally mental, and he calls this ultimate reality the mind at large.
Mind at large. It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
It kind of is. Imagine this vast, interconnected consciousness that encompasses everything. And according to Kastrup, our individual minds are like dissociated fragments of this mind at large.
So we're all like little pieces of a universal mind, experiencing the world from our own unique perspective.
That's the essence of it. He compares it to characters in a dream, or alters, in a case of dissociative identity disorder, separate but ultimately connected to a single source.
Okay, so that's the basic framework of analytic idealism. But why does Kastrup favor this view over physicalism, the idea that everything is ultimately physical? What are his main arguments?
One of Kastrup's central arguments revolves around the nature of perception. He argues that our senses don't provide us with a direct, unfiltered view of reality.
He uses the dashboard metaphor to explain this, right?
Exactly, yeah. He suggests that our perception is like an airplane dashboard. It gives us information about the world, but it's filtered, processed, and interpreted by our senses and minds. We're not seeing reality as it is, but a simplified representation of it, tailored, for our survival.
So our senses are more like tools for navigating the world, not perfect mirrors reflecting reality.
Precisely. And this leads him to question the validity of physicalism, which assumes that our senses are, giving us this objective view of a material world.
It makes you wonder, like, what aspects of reality are we missing? because of the limitations of our senses?
That's a great question, and one that analytic idealism encourages us to ponder. Kastrup also points to the hard problem of consciousness as another challenge for physicalism.
Right, the classic problem of explaining how subjective experience arises from purely physical matter. If everything is just atoms and molecules, where does consciousness come from? How does analytic idealism tackle this?
Well, if reality is fundamentally mental, as idealism suggests, then consciousness isn't some strange anomaly that needs to be explained away. It's an inherent aspect of reality itself.
So instead of trying to find consciousness within matter, idealism says consciousness is like the foundation, and matter arises from it.
Exactly, yeah. It flips the script entirely. And this has some pretty radical implications for how we understand the universe and our place within it.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We'll be right back to delve deeper into the arguments for analytic idealism and explore some of its fascinating implications. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork for analytic idealism, but now it's time to get into some of the more mind-bending aspects of this theory. Kastrup uses some pretty compelling evidence to support his claims. And one of the most intriguing examples, I think, comes from, like, the animal kingdom.
Oh, are you talking about the flatworm experiments?
Yes.
Yeah, they really do. They provide this fascinating challenge to our conventional understanding of memory and its relationship to the brain.
Exactly. So these tiny creatures called planaria, they can regenerate their bodies after being, like, cut in half. And even more astonishing, they seem to retain memories from before the cut.
Right.
It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
Yeah, it really challenges that whole idea that memories are physically stored in the brain. If memories can survive the complete destruction and regeneration of the brain, like where are they residing?
Exactly. It's like their memories are stored somewhere outside of their physical bodies. How does this align with the principles of analytic idealism?
Well, if we remember the concept of the mind at large, this interconnected consciousness that underlies all reality, it offers a potential explanation. What if memories aren't solely physical, but are also connected to this broader mental realm?
So instead of being solely localized in the brain, memories could be more like patterns of information within the mind at large and accessible to individual minds.
That's one way to think about it, yeah. The brain in this context wouldn't be like the sole storage unit for memories, but more like a receiver or a translator, allowing us to access and experience memories that exist on a deeper level.
That makes you wonder, what are the true limits of memory? If it's not, like, confined to the physical brain, could we potentially access a vast reservoir of memories and experiences beyond our individual lifetimes?
It's a very tantalizing possibility that analytic idealism opens up, yeah. And it's not just memory that challenges the physicalist view. Kastrup also highlights the limitations of using neural activity to explain the entirety of consciousness.
Right. The idea that if we could just map out all the firing neurons in the brain, we'll have cracked the code of consciousness. But there seems to be so much more to our mental experience than just neural activity.
Absolutely. I mean, neural correlates can capture some aspects of conscious experience, the things that we can report and observe, but they miss this vast uncharted territory of the unconscious, the dreams, the intuitions, the depths of our inner world that we might not even be fully aware of.
Yeah, it's like saying we can understand a whole book just by analyzing the ink patterns on the pages. There's so much more meaning and depth that lies beyond the physical structure. And speaking of exploring the depths of consciousness, there's another controversial topic that Kastrup brings up, the effects of psychedelics.
Yeah.
He makes some pretty bold claims about how psychedelics impact brain activity and subjective experience. In particular, he suggests that they can increase subjective experience while decreasing brain activity, which challenges this common assumption that consciousness is generated by the brain.
Yeah, and there's a lot of debate about this.
Right. Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. It seems counterintuitive. If the brain is less active, how could our experiences be more intense and expansive?
Yeah, so Kastrup criticizes the entropic brain hypothesis, which suggests that psychedelics induce a more disordered, chaotic state in the brain, leading to heightened consciousness. He argues that this explanation doesn't really align with the richness and depth of psychedelic experiences.
So it's not just about random neural firing, but about accessing different levels of consciousness, perhaps even tapping into the mind at large.
Yeah, that's the idea Kastrup puts forth, and it's certainly a controversial one. The scientific community is still debating the the precise mechanisms of psychedelic experiences, but they undeniably offer a unique window into the nature of consciousness, right?
It raises these profound questions about the relationship between mind and brain, and whether consciousness can exist independently of the physical brain. And this leads us to an intriguing critique of Kastrup's view, offered by Sjöstedt-Hughes in his review. He introduces this alternative metaphor, the porous dashboard. We'll dive into that next. Welcome back.
It's incredible to think how, like, just shifting our fundamental assumptions about reality could have such a ripple effect on how we understand ourselves and the universe. Like if we entertain the possibility that reality is mental, it opens up all these new realms of exploration.
Oh, it really does. Sjöstedt-Hughes's porous dashboard metaphor really highlights this. The idea that our minds aren't just passively receiving information, but actively interacting with and shaping reality. That's a powerful concept. Yeah, it makes me think of those moments when you feel like this deep sense of connection to nature, or when you have like a creative breakthrough that seems to come from like beyond your conscious mind. What if those experiences are glimpses of this deeper interplay between our individual minds and the mind at large?
Hmm. That's a fascinating thought. It suggests that these experiences aren't just, like anomalies, but perhaps hints at a deeper truth about the nature of reality. And it connects back to Kastrup's idea of our minds being like characters in a dream, right? Ultimately connected to a single source.
It's almost like we're all tuning into like different frequencies of this mind at large, experiencing reality from our own unique perspectives, but ultimately participating in a shared reality.
Yeah, yeah. And perhaps through practices like, meditation or contemplation or even creative expression, we can become more attuned to these deeper levels of reality, right? Expanding our awareness and understanding.
I love that idea. It suggests that we have a more active role to play in shaping our reality than we might typically think. If consciousness is primary, then perhaps our thoughts and intentions and actions have a greater impact on a world around us than we realize.
Yeah, that's a powerful concept to consider. It challenges the materialist view that sees consciousness as a byproduct of the physical world and suggests that it might be the other way around, that the consciousness is shaping the physical world.
Right, which brings us back to the heart of analytic idealism, right? The idea that reality is fundamentally mental. It's a radical shift in perspective, but one that opens up a world of possibilities. And as Sjöstedt-Hughes reminds us at the end of his paper, it's a question worth pondering deeply. If reality is mental, what does that mean for our understanding of ourselves, our connection to the world, and the possibilities of human experience?
Yeah, it's a question that invites us to explore the boundaries of our current understanding and then consider the possibility that the universe is far more interconnected and mysterious than we might have imagined.
It's a call to embrace the unknown, to approach the mysteries of existence with curiosity and an open mind. And as we've explored in this deep dive, analytic idealism offers a compelling framework for doing just that.
It encourages us to look beyond the material world and to consider the profound implications of a reality that is fundamentally mental. And in doing so, we might just discover new dimensions of ourselves and of the universe that we never knew existed.
So to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring these ideas, delve into the works of Kastrup, Sjöstedt-Hughes, and the many other thinkers who are grappling with the nature of reality. Don't be afraid to question your assumptions, to embrace the mystery, and to allow your mind to be stretched by these profound concepts.
Because as we've seen, the universe might be far more wondrous and strange than we ever dared to imagine. And and by exploring these possibilities, by embracing the idea that Reality itself might be a product of mind. We might just unlock new levels of understanding, creativity, and connection.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by shifting our perspective, by embracing the potential of analytic idealism, we can tap into a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in our own lives and contribute to a more interconnected and compassionate world. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of reality.